All right, this should be working. Let's see. This will be our test. Once I get it working and we see that it's up on all three places, as in Restream, YouTube, and... Oh, it's on Twitch.
It is on Twitch. I got the notification.
Still offline on YouTube and Restream. That's weird, because I used the Restream thing to go through here, but it still says it's offline here. But it's on Twitch. That's so weird. What's going on? Why are you not working? Oh, YouTube looks like it says receiving your content. So it's going on YouTube. Oh, it's going on YouTube. Here we go. We're live on YouTube. It just doesn't say it's live here. I'm going to unmute this for a second and see where this is. Oh, it's going on YouTube. Okay. Oh, it just takes a little longer to get to YouTube. Still says it's offline here, which is confusing me.
Oh, I got a notification. Watch now. Line Rider quick reviews.
Sweet. Well, should we just go from here, or should I restart it with an actual stream?
I mean, I'm ready.
All right, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Why not? All right. So this is So You Think You Know Curves by lots of people.
It's just FlagCapper, Lukking, Sheldon. Oh, and then it also featuring Chuggers and Anton.
FlagCapper, Lukking, and Sheldon, and then Chuggers and Anton also did stuff apparently. I get the feeling that FlagCapper and Lukking were like the big movers and shakers, and then Sheldon also did some stuff, and then ended up doing some more stuff, and then Chuggers and Anton got added in because wherever Sheldon is, they follow. That's my guess. There's not really a lot of information on what happened, but
yeah,
Let's watch
see.
It.
I'm a fan.
All
Let's
right.
go.
3, 2, 1, go.
So, Electro Swing intensifies.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the title, or should we talk about that later?
So You Think You Know Curves. Well, this part I don't have much to say. I like it.
That's a cool recycle.
Yeah,
and that's a cool recycle.
The sort of minimalist, like miniature and blue stuff.
Yeah,
I like.
yeah.
And the back and forth swing is awesome.
I'm curious.
Curves,
one thing that's going to be a common thing for me is that I'm very curious of how a lot of this was made. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when it gets this fast, it's where it loses.
Yeah.
Me.
Why?
But I'm spoiled by Mountain. I'm spoiled by Mountain.
Yeah.
Mountain has spoiled me. These curves are so shaky and
jittery,
weird and full of stabilizers, and like they're fast and they're like fluid, but they're also this like chaotic mess that I know that stuff like Mountain takes time, but now that I've seen it, it's like, for me personally, that's the only way to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I think they would say, well, he goes a lot faster than he ever does in Mountain. You know?
Does he need to? Though?
That's a very good question.
And the other thing is, a lot of these manuals, I feel like they couldn't get him to like stably recycle the manual. So what they did instead was they just had him roll a bunch. And then when they get to slower speeds here, they recycle a complete curve.
I feel like this is the kind of thing that's like, it's crazy impressive when you do it in beta 2, and then with the new LRA tools, it's like, once you understand how it's done, which I'm pretty sure is just tiny little acceleration lines carefully placed.
Yep.
And it's basically, it's like, you know, you just find a place where it affects a contact point the second time around and not the first time around. And it's like, then it's like, oh, well, that's significantly less interesting once you realize, like, that's what goes into it. So, and it's also, I mean, I guess there's a big thing where it's like, it's disconcerting because I'm not sure what took effort and what didn't in this, you know? And there's so much lore in Line Rider about like how hard things were to make. And then in this one, it's like, I have no idea how hard or easy this was to make. And so a lot of it's based on being like, you're supposed to be like, whoa, how did they do that? That's amazing. But then for me, it's like, well, it's like, I feel like part of me is like, whoa, how did they do that? And then also part of me is like, well, for all I know, this could have been super simple, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of it rides on the assumption, or rather, it rides on the idea, bit of a gamble, I think, that you're supposed to find every single thing in here impressive regardless of the effort.
That's also true, is that something that I think you're alluding to is that the track is very random. There's a lot of different things happening, and a lot of the things that are happening are new things that people haven't done before, but it's very, very random. There's a lot of different things happening, and I don't know. For me, I'm kind of constantly like, okay, but why?
It's all over the place. It does a lot of cool stuff. I don't know if I'm able to appreciate the cool stuff as much if it's not placed in a good context.
Yeah. It's hard for me to appreciate when I don't actually know what went into making it, which is something I was hoping they would be like, here's how we made all this stuff.
Yo, developer commentary this, please.
Yeah. Some of it I think I can guess at how they made it, and other things I'm just like, I don't really know how easy or difficult this was to make. And maybe that's like kind of the goal, is like they're trying to confuse the audience and just get us to be like, I don't know how you did it, but it's
that big old question mark is me.
I guess. I mean, maybe that's the point. And that it starts to feel okay. I mean, I hesitate to use this word, but I think it's accurate. It starts to feel elitist to me when it's this, it creates this atmosphere of, we're doing all this stuff that was really difficult in Beta 2, and we're using LRA, but you don't know if it's difficult or not because you've never made these things, you know? It's like we don't want to give up our secrets, but it's also like, but you know, why do I care about your secrets when they're...
I'd be careful, though. That might just be a projection from the track's title.
That's something that...
Which...
Yeah. Definitely. You want to watch it quarter speed, and we can talk about the title? Yeah. It's a good segue.
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. So go ahead. Talk about the title.
So you think you know curves. The implication in this title... And this could be, I don't know, I could be reading very too far deep into this. The implication here is that these folks know curves. And the implication there is, up until this point, I don't.
Yeah.
No one else does. And I don't take that as like an insult, but I do think it's misplaced. Because... I don't think it's wrong for me to find the parts of Mountain that are so smooth and controlled and consistent, and you can see the detail that went into it, and you can like watch in every single frame these moments that are just like a lot of care was put into it, and when there are parts of this, like I like a lot of FlagCapper's parts because he tries to maintain a single aesthetic, which is that very like simplistic manual and like occasional small line thing.
This part is probably my favorite part of the whole track.
Yeah. The opening and like bits of the end where he's doing weird shit with the loop, they're at least smooth and they're at least designed to maintain some kind of like central aesthetic, something that like ties it together. FlagCapper's parts are cohesive. In the context of the whole piece, they're not. But on its own, you can look at FlagCapper's parts and say, this could be a track of its own. break for drink. Yeah, the title "So You Think You Know Curves" just irks me because I'm not entirely sure they do.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as like a shots fired, ooh, you got insulted kind of thing, but I just mean when you look at, again, I keep citing this because I'm spoiled. Uh, the track Mountain just exerts so much control over every.
And I mean, I think when you use the word control, like, and we watch this part, like, you could argue, like, oh, this part's more controlled because he goes faster and he gets, like, super fast and then he gets super slow again, and it's all, like, super controlled. But it's like, it's not so much a control about, like, what you're able to do with Bosch at high speeds where it's difficult to control him, but, like, control in terms of aesthetic and control in terms of what we're seeing. And, you know, what we see here is it's
aesthetic, positioning, rotation.
Yeah, what we see here is, like, he's going really fast and it gets super wobbly, and mostly I'm just like, okay, that's it, that's cool, like, that's an interesting idea, but what are you gonna do with it? And the answer is nope, we're gonna move on to something else now.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are, like, super structurally interesting, but nothing ties it together.
So I am really interested, but I'm more than liking the track, I'm just really curious how this stuff was made, because there's some interesting, like, brain food in here for creating things that are cohesive, like you know, the super fast acceleration on lines. Like, there's some interesting potential there, and then, like, the recycles using the tiny acceleration lines. Like, there's some interesting potential there, you know. I think about Opal talking about how sometimes to maintain a certain aesthetic, you want Bosch to just ride back on the same line. And now it seems like, oh, maybe that's possible, you know, and it's more easily possible than ever before. So I'm really curious what techniques were used. Oh, this is like, this part is just like, what? That's not even a curve.
It feels braggadocio. It feels like braggadocio.
So it's like it's interesting to have that just thrown in there, and interesting, I mean, in a very Minnesotan passive aggressive way, of having to just, like, thrown in there where it's like, so you think you know curves, and it's like this thing. I'm like, this is not even a curve. But
do you is the question. But here's a sort of a larger point I want to build towards.
Yeah.
A lot of the tracks we as a community make, I am guilty of this, lots of people are guilty of this. It's not a bad thing, but it is something we do a lot, is when we make tracks, we don't start with something and then work from that, like, central idea. We have sort of, like, a few, like, buzzwords going on in our head, like recycle or, like, fling, and then we just throw shit out there until something sticks. And that's good if you want to get a bunch of crazy cool ideas out there, which this track does in spades. There are lots of really cool.
Yeah,
like,
maybe at some point we should talk about the things that are interesting about this track that we like and would like to see more development on.
And there are tons of moments here that make me go, like, holy shit, what? But it's tough to comment on when it's wrapped into a very muddled, foggy package.
Yeah. And then with the title like that, I have a hard time getting over the title when I'm just like it feels very condescending, you know? And it's like I you know, you don't have to know how to do all this stuff to know curves. Like, it's just, I don't know.
I would say
I guess what does that mean though? Like what does it mean to know curves? I don't know.
Yeah, now that I think about it, the title is actually, like, nonsense. Not in the sense that I don't like the title. I don't, for reasons I've already explained, but it just doesn't really make sense.
Anyway, maybe we should
let's go back to the start and let's talk about some of the cool shit we like here. Let's go through this track on a more discrete ideas-based thing. Sound
good? That sounds good, because we've just been talking generally about it, and we've gone through like half of it. All right.
Yeah. Let's start at 9 seconds.
Okay, let me get there.
I'm still at quarter speed.
Okay.
So
9 seconds. No. Okay. All right, ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
Bam. All right.
So the first thing that's interesting is that FlagCapper takes the miniature in blue idea, which there's some really cool stuff that he did in miniature in blue involving recycling. And he's basically, I feel like how this track started out is probably he was like, what if I use red lines? And, what other things can we explore with red lines with this sort of smooth, curvy recycling stuff? And then it quickly got really dramatic when Lukking.
I like this opening a lot. Mm-hmm.
We should go. Should do? We should start from the color replay and play that in quarter speed.
Okay.
Let's skip ahead. So let's start at 253. Sorry, 253. Okay. Let me know when you're there. All right. I'm there. 3, 2, 1, go.
I wonder if the annotations appear at quarter speed. Yep.
Perfect.
There's FlagCapper. So anyway,
what I said about FlagCapper. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good summary of it. I would say miniature in blue with red.
Yeah, and that's really interesting.
Yeah. I think it allows them to be a little more precise.
It allows a little more precise and a little more just capabilities in terms of recycling. You can recycle more things.
And
more times in more ways.
And I would also say a better ability to maintain a consistent aesthetic without weird stabilizers and shit all over
exactly.
the place.
That wasn't the things. One of the things in miniature in blue is that there's a bunch of stabilizers everywhere, and it's that's, it's an interesting aesthetic, but it didn't totally fit the super clean, polished thing he was going for. Yeah. And it's if you understand why the stabilizers are there, then it's then it's cool. But in this, it's also cool because you don't see the stabilizers. The stabilizers are effectively tiny red lines.
Yep.
And then you can see the really cool potential here where he recycles his tail manual once and then twice. And it's that's actually really cool. It's a tail manual, and then he recycles it once, and then he recycles it again, just using the tiny red lines. And then I don't really know what he was smoking when he decided to do this. I gotta say.
You remember that bit from Watt? I think it's like that, but faster.
It is. It's a lot like that bit from Watt, which is interesting. I don't know. It's. I feel like there's an untapped idea here, and then it gets super fast. Basically, I think isn't this just hyper stacked red lines?
Oh yeah.
And they're just frame based red lines, and then he does it and makes the angle such a way so that he stays in a sort of a manual position. It's
that's what it is. Okay.
Really low nose manual, and then that was some rolling. So.
But dude, I figured out what it is. What sort of gets me. When people make high-speed manuals, it's impossible to think of them in terms of an overall structure. When you do slower ones, you can be I want it to be sort of shaped like this, and you can change all the little things. When you're high-speed, you have to do it frame by frame. One of the things that I think did with Mountain is that he would regularly look at the structure and continual movement of the manual as a whole when he did it. And so that allowed him to be super smooth when he did stuff, and that's not really something
I don't
suspect was tapped here.
I do think that here they're not going for the same aesthetic. They're going for look at how powerful this is sort of a feel.
Yeah.
I'm just frankly not interested, and maybe that's post ham mindset, but referencing Rideliner's track, which but it's just it's interesting the fact that that's possible to speed them up super quickly.
Yeah.
With just a manual line. So that I guess that is interesting, but it's it's not explored aesthetically, it's not explored artistically, it's not explored within the context of a larger work. I mean, there is no context. He just suddenly speeds up super fast, you know?
And like the rest of the way the track is framed doesn't acknowledge
yeah.
that. There's no like real music change aside from like maybe some additional bass. Whatever it is, it's really subtle and is probably just adding like a hi-hat or something like that. Because the song itself is not.
It's definitely not an attempt to line up a song with a track. I don't know if this was made to music or not, but if it was made to music, the music was certainly not a primary player. It's certainly an afterthought.
And they're just random moments that are just like, there's
the
a
stuff
zero
that
rotation
Sheldon did strikes
here.
me a lot. Strikes me like it has a lot in common with Interrobang and the stuff that Sheldon did in there, where it was like, here's a green line, and then here's a bunch of lines on top of that green line, which is interesting. It's just like, what are you gonna do with that? And then like the quote unquote curves that are like super not curvy, mm-hmm. And then later we get like well, here's just some rolling. But later we get to like there's like that loop that is like it's like a nose chain, and then he recycles it, quote unquote, because he connects it with green lines, and then those super small lines to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's like that's an interesting aesthetic, but like if you're just I want to see more is what I'm saying. Like we already saw a lot of this experimentation in Interrobang, and there's like more things being thrown out here, but I want to see more stuff. I want to see more, not more stuff. I think we've seen plenty of stuff to experiment with. I want to see more attention paid to what kind of track you're trying to make, if that makes any sense. I want to see
a sense of coherence. A sense of coherence.
And even if that sense of coherence is like we're just going to throw out a bunch of stuff, like this track was clearly not planned that way, and it just ended up that way. And I would love to see more. I don't know. I would love to see more attention to what are we trying to do with this, and I'd love to see more thought put into what kind of aesthetic, like what sort of aesthetic does this kind of a thing that we're doing create, or like what sort of a what kind of reactions will an audience have to this, and not an audience that already knows all of the Line Rider lore about recycling and high-speed tracks and stuff like that, because it's. I mean, I maybe that for some people that's their target audience, and they want to blow people's minds with the new tools of LRA. For me, I'm like, it's not as interesting as creating a universal experience, or maybe not even a universal experience, but creating an experience for more people than people who understand what's going on.
Basically, in conclusion, I'd like to say, in response to the question, so you think you know curves, do I need to?
That's a good question.
Is it necessary for me?
Is it necessary for me to understand curves in the way you're portraying them in this track in order to get something out of what people create, or in order to critique what you're doing, or in order to enjoy what people are doing in Line Rider, like like maybe it is necessary for people to understand like the intricacies of Line Rider history and what goes into making a track in order to appreciate a track. But I hope not, because then we're in for a very, very dull future.
We will see. We will see.
What were you going to say?
My parting thoughts are, convince me. I'm not convinced yet. Convince me that I need to know these curves.
Convince me that the stuff that is in this track is valuable. Convince me that these techniques are used. Convince me that I should invest in learning how you made this stuff. If you made a video, I would totally watch it, but right now, I'm not going to pick up Line Round and be like, I want to know how they did that, because that was super cool. Right now, I'm just kind of like, well, you did a bunch of stuff that I had no idea what you were doing, but I don't see the value in it yet, you know? Anyway.
I think that's a good place to leave off. And I don't mean that in like a very kingly, like debauched Roman emperor, convince me kind of way.
I guess I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to adopt the same attitude of superiority that I feel coming off of this title and also the track in general. And I'm not trying to get into a war of superiority here. The way this reads to me as someone who doesn't know exactly what was done is that I'm not supposed to know what was done, but I'm somehow supposed to appreciate it even though I don't understand what's going on. So I don't know. Things to think about. I guess I don't want to give you like any specific advice, but like that's my reaction. That's our reactions. Should we talk about the ending at all before we sign off? It's the same thing. The same thing. It's just like, why is this? Convince me that this is.
It's also not actually real.
Wait, really? It doesn't actually repeat?
Yeah, no.
Did they just? Yep. Oh, really? That's strange. I bought it. Bought it.
It does for a while, I think, but it doesn't
completely repeat. Interesting.
I think there's some glitch in the Matrix along the way. Anyway.
I guess that's it. This kind of got long, so we should probably call that a day. There's our slightly incoherent, rambly thoughts about this track. Thanks for watching.
Nice.
Bye.